All right. So Charlene, thank you for that. Today we're pretty excited. Steve and I have been talking with Jim Pemberton. Jim Pemberton is from Pemberton's Cleaning and Restoration Supply in Pennsylvania. Many of you may know Jim. He's been around the industry for, 40 years now. He started with his father, Lee, and they've done a lot for the industry and continue to do a lot for the industry over the 40 plus years. So those of you who have ever heard of two-step cleaning, that goes directly back to Pemberton's. So alkaline clean, acid rinse, that's attributed right to the Pembertons. I've known Jim for quite so many years. I've been back to his facility in Pennsylvania. He's an educator. He's been educating for most of his career. That's how he started, and that's how these businesses started. So a lot of people start up a company, they learn a little bit, and then they go to their supplier and they get some information. Jim was early on in starting. He put a classroom in his facility, and they started teaching people how to do certain skills related to cleaning. And Jim continues to this day, and he's an expert in upholstery, so we want to talk about that today.
Yes, I have been looking forward to this time with Jim. Jim has been teaching. He's top expert at what he's doing here, so I think it's really a great privilege to have him. What we're going to focus on this evening is we're going to focus on the question if somebody wanted to get started in the upholstery cleaning part of the business, what would you do to go about getting into that? And so that's where the focus is going to be primarily through most of this webinar, is somebody who's just getting started. Now, we've already received a bunch of questions, and some of them get into some really nitty-gritty of the most complicated fabrics. And hopefully we'll have some time at the very end of the webinar that we can get into some of those tricky ones. But we were just talking with Jim, and he said he would consider coming back on another webinar to just focus in on the most challenging fabrics out there. So I think it's going to be really good. But again, I'm looking forward to all the information that's waiting for us. So, Jim,
if you could just let us know, right now, you and I were talking, and a lot of information is out there on the internet. And sometimes you read it and you kind of wince a little bit. What is your take on information you see floating around out there?
Well, first of all, the way I like to look at it is I think that it's mostly helpful. It's helpful because instead of just having one or two people to talk to or nobody at all, there's access to a great deal of people that we never could have talked to before. So I don't want to be the old teacher that says you got to come to class or to learn anywhere else. The problem is just we don't always know the credibility of the people that are giving the advice. So if at all possible, it's good to get to a class. Now that's been challenging the last year now, but some people are doing some very good webinar and Zoom training. I'm not one of them, but I mean, there are good folks out there that have really picked up the ball and helped out through this time. So I would always recommend that first, not because I'm saying, gee, you got to pay for it to be worth it, but simply because you've got a person with established credibility. And you need that because if you could be taking great risks. Tim, you'll get a kick out of this maybe, but I had once just actually copied a whole Facebook conversation that somebody was asking how to clean white cotton fabric. And people were saying to spray it with traffic lane cleaner to wet the crap out of it. They didn't say the word crap, but I'm claiming this up to the benefit of the audience. Just horrible things that I don't know if they were just people that like to watch the world burn or they thought that was the right thing to do. But I felt very badly because someone could see that light onto it before others would come and correct it. and get in trouble. So yeah, if you can't get any kind of training class right away, and that's not always possible, find yourself a mentor. One of the nice things about the social media, the bulletin boards, and some of the networking we have available, or in your case, you've got CFI, so I'll give you an unasked for endorsement. When you've got an association, you should know who your mentors are. And you need to be able to turn to people who've had the experience, the credibility, and your interests at heart. That would be the first thing I would say to do before anything else is get yourself somebody to lead you along the path.
That's great advice. And, you know, I work for Legend Brands and we have live chat and we're all sitting by all day long answering questions. So there's a lot of resources out there. Education, IICRC, plus some hands-on education that's available. And I think that's kind of how this industry started and how it continues. We're big on educating each other to help each other become more prosperous. And there's a lot of people willing to share the information.
We have a very selfless industry, I agree.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the brief answer is you find somebody who knows a little more than you do, and boy, if you got an association, it's a good place to start.
So I take it you're against heavy traffic lane cleaners on a white cotton sofa. Is that what I take from that?
Yeah, to this day, I don't know why people were doing what they were doing. But see, one of the problems with, especially say Facebook, while the bulletin board system is older and sometimes seen as less current, at least you can go back and look at it. You know, there's an archive and you can see an entire conversation. So if the class clown says something, there were 7 or 8 people to take them down, but it might be a few hours later. The problem in Facebook is you can't archive it. You can't go back and see the conversation. So sometimes at that snapshot, the bad information isn't corrected in time. And that's where I tell people to be careful. I'm not saying not to belong to Facebook groups. There's a lot of really good ones out there, but you just have to be careful if you don't catch the picture at the right time.
Right.
Yeah.
So in a customer comes into your facility, they maybe buy a portable, they get started carpet cleaning. Another good thing about our industry, the cost of entry is relatively low to get on to become an entrepreneur. And so carpet, we start out a lot of synthetic carpet, and you can do an okay job, you know, cleaning carpet with very little information, some information. But then naturally their customers start asking them about upholstery cleaning. And what would be, you know, a new customer coming in, what advice would you give him to enter into the upholstery cleaning side of the business?
All right. So second to the mentor, which is a really good thing to do, they should start by cleaning fibers that are like the carpet cleaning fibers, that is synthetic fibers. It's really easy to learn a basic burn test to tell synthetic from natural fibers. They don't have to go as far as the ISCRC level, the color of the flame and the smell. Does it melt or does it crumble? And it may seem a little simplistic, but even if they could get to the point, if it melts, they're probably safer. But I don't want to go to the point of saying they should never clean a natural fiber, but they're sure walking on thin ice if they're brand new without any experience. I'd like to add, don't trust any tag on the furniture. You know, a number of people, the W and the S, you know, for wet or solvent cleaning really leads them astray. Or the tag that says blended cotton polyester felt, which is what it's stuffed with, and they think that's what they're cleaning. So relying on tags is not helpful. The era we're in today where a cell phone picture is often forwarded to a cleaner. You know, can you clean this? Can you get this spot out? That two-dimensional picture is just not very helpful and not good to rely on.
Jim, when you're doing a test, there's a lot of fabrics that are blends. Can I get you to expand a little bit into actually how do you do that test? Like a question, where do you get the fabric? Let's say you come in and you know there's not a zipper, things like this. So maybe elaborate a little bit, describe when you're teaching in the classes, how do you do a simple burn test? And especially how would you identify if it was a blend and just say 20% of something we don't want to be touching?
Okay. A couple of things. There are some furniture by the way it's designed that defies you to get a sample, in which case the cleaner would have to treat it as suspect. You can't test it, you don't know what it is. Because again, we're in a scenario of the new guy who's been cleaning carpet for 3 weeks and gets asked to clean the chair. So that's where we're at. It had no training, no mentor. If there is a zipper on a cushion and you unzip the zipper, underneath of that, there's a certain amount of seam allowance where you have extra fabric that can be snipped off, something about the size of a fingernail clip. If there's skirts on the furniture, the same thing, the skirt can be turned over and that material can be found. If that material can't be gotten at, we just have to treat it as a natural suspect fiber. Now, once they have that sample, melt is synthetic, crumbles natural, and if it does a little bit of both. If you get something sticky and it burns your finger because it's plastic, but you also feel and see something that crumbles, you've got a blend. You won't know it's 20% or 50%, but essentially, using the very old cliche that a chain is as strong as its weakest link. If you detect or think you detect anything that crumbles or has a soft dash, you have a potentially risky fabric. And I'm still saying potentially, because if the cleaner who's not knowledgeable by cleaning works with very low moisture cleaning systems, they have a margin of safety, but also a margin of risk because they're dealing with the unknown. Going backwards, sending a completely untrained person out, I don't want them to think the burn test gives them a red light, green light, but it's something that can help them. I would like to also add, I think most distribution networks really do support training and helping cleaners today. That was not always the case in the past. And where the cleaner buys the product, and if I can give a plug to any distributor or company store across the country, if you buy something where you can see somebody nose to nose and not just get it shipped into you from someone you've never met, you can form enough of a relationship to have somebody that can also probably guide you.
If I can continue and get you a little bit deeper, again, I'm looking at somebody who's been cleaning carpets. They have a basic understanding, but then you start talking about a burn test. Now, all sorts of things could come to mind to somebody who hasn't been to a class. And it is a pretty simple thing, but if I was the consumer and I see this guy come out with a pack of matches and start, lighting things on fire in my living room, I would get a little concerned. So is there an etiquette? How do you start burning her furniture? Yeah, I assume you disengage it from the fabric before.
Okay. If you take it step by step.
Yeah.
First, tell the customer what you're doing and why. I would like to take a small sample from the construction of your furniture that won't cause any harm to the material at all. Let me show you where I'd like to take it. Is that okay with you? Now, this is assuming they're home. A lot of people are cleaning in homes where there's no one there. But you still should communicate with what you intend to do or with the housekeeper or someone representing the owner of the property, what you're doing. A small pair of scissors, not a pocket knife, is suggested to take this out. I've seen people saw at furniture and it's not a good look. That small pair, taking something about the size again of a fingernail clipping, you should hold in tweezers, forceps, a paper clip, something that you won't get burned, because getting burned and dropping it isn't a good look for your professional appearance. Decades ago, we said do this test over an ashtray. Well, most people don't have smoke or have ashtrays at home. So take it outside or over an agreed upon fireproof surface. But when in doubt, I would take it outside. Then incinerate, blow out the flame, give it a couple seconds, because if it's synthetic and it melts, it really will hurt if you squeeze it. Then squeeze it between your thumb and forefinger. See if your thumb and forefinger are clean, which is a synthetic will do that. If you have a black smudge on it, natural does that. If you have a little bit of both, it's a blend.
Okay. The other thing that people might have heard who are brand new is about color stability on fabrics. If you're doing something that's 100% synthetic, are you aware of any 100% synthetic fabrics that the colors bleed?
It can happen, but it's so remote that they're far more likely to get hit by a tractor trailer on the way to the job. I've seen it twice, and in each case, it was actually caused by a dry solvent cleaning product. Once by a dry solvent cleaner, once by a solvent-based protector. So everything was opposite world when that happened. But as far as standard upholstery cleaning detergent used properly, I've not seen it happen on synthetic.
Okay. And
it's impossible.
If you were, let's say, doing a simple cotton print, is there a test for that color stability? Can you describe that quickly, just to let people know? Again, if they're confident it's not natural fiber, you're probably not going to have a dye stability problem. But as soon as you have something such as a cotton print, do you recommend doing a test for the stability of that colors?
I recommend color stability tests. This is a difficult venue to describe it without picture, but I'll take my time and do it as best I can. But just a qualifier to everybody, a color fastness test is not as easy as that burn test. Okay. But that understanding, what you're looking at is, if you're finding color bleeding, we find it mostly on woven patterns, like we call it jacquard weave. Looks very much like a print, but the pattern is woven throughout the fabric. In any event, anytime you see a dark color in contrast to a light color, that could be just a little warning sign. Take the strongest product that you're going to clean with. And the reason I say that is some people universally test with traffic lane cleaner or an upholstery preconditioner, but that may not be what they clean with. They just are what they think is the strongest product. And that doesn't make any sense, because you need to test with what you're going to use. You need enough knowledge of your products to know what your strongest product is. If you're spotting the furniture, it might be a protein spot. So this is where the color fastness test takes some judgment and thought process. But whatever the strongest product that you intend to use on the fabric, you need to find an inconspicuous area, because if it bleeds, you're going to have a stain. So you need that area back by a zipper. You need that area under the skirting. And if you don't have a place to test it, you need to ask yourself if you want to clean it. Again, we're talking to beginners here, to be clear.
Right.
But once you've determined a location, you need to think about how you clean things. And the reason I say that is, now in California, this isn't much of an issue, except maybe in the northern parts of the state or the mountain region. But if you're driving around in the winter with a relatively cold truck, and you have a little spotting bottle with your product in it that's 45, 50 degrees, and you test with that, but you clean with hot water, that is not going to be the same test reaction. So you need to test as close as you can with the temperature of how you're going to clean it. And then apply the product when you can to both sides of the fabric. Most fabrics have protector put on when they're manufactured. And a protector keeps things from penetrating the fabric. Well, that doesn't just mean spills, but it also means cleaning detergent. And if you just do a small test area with a couple drops on the surface of an inconspicuous area that's never had any abrasive wear, if you can get it on both sides, like where a zipper is, and pinch and rub the detergent into both sides, now it's representing better what will happen when you precondition and brush while heavily worn on or pushing things. But you can't test there. So when you do that in conspicuous areas, you really have to work that material in to simulate that. Then an absorbent towel, and cotton is better. We use microfiber a lot in cleaning today, which are really great for cleaning, but because they adsorb and they don't absorb, you really don't always see the color transfer well. That's a little thing. Just make sure it's a white cotton towel. but don't rub it. You can rub the color off of a lot of things that don't bleed. You can rub color right off a new pair of blue jeans. You just press it together, maybe hold it in place with a clamp. But you have to allow the dye to naturally wick into it. Dye bleeding is a wicking process. Like most cleaners have seen carpets that wick where you clean it, looks good and it dries and it looks dirty. So the soil wicked up to the surface. The dyes are doing that. They're migrating from one area to another, and that's what we see as bleeding. So vacuum the furniture, set up your equipment, give a presentation of fiber protector, tell them how great you can clean their carpets or tile and grout floors, but keep yourself occupied in a positive way so that you can give this some time. This could take 15 minutes, it could take longer, but go back and check and see if during the wicking process where it's absorbed the wet testing material into the dry towel, because moisture goes from wet to dry. And at that point, you see any color at all, a light red, if it's pink on a light red or a light green or blue, anything like that, stop. I have a saying, there's no such thing as a little bit of bleeding, like being a little bit pregnant. All right, it is or it isn't. And any color transfer seen in that inconspicuous an area that was never rubbed, never abraded, never exposed to the sun means that the bleeding could be far more severe in these areas that you'd have to precondition more heavily or get wetter. That would be the best way I could sum up a color bleeding test verbally.
Perfect. Want to just catch before I give it back over to Tim for more topics here, but you mentioned something quickly. You mentioned dry vacuuming.
Yeah.
I could see walking into it and I go, oh, that's pretty clean. Why do I need to take the time? I'm going to use a vacuum in the cleaning process. Do I really need to go over that entire sectional sofa with a vacuum?
That's so difficult to try to tell somebody that a $30,000 truck-mounted carpet cleaning machine can't suck that all out when they have their good upholstery tool on it. But really, I understand why people would think that that's a waste of step. But here's how I look at it. One is, today we have more animals than ever. The amount of animal hair and dander on furniture is just astronomically higher than it has ever been. And when you get that wet, you make it more difficult to remove. So essentially, if you'd like to spend more time cleaning the job, then don't take the time to vacuum. But if you will brush and vacuum the furniture first, you speed the job up. The other thing is when you're cleaning furniture, especially, you have to scale back so much of what you do. Less water pressure, less heat, milder cleaning chemistry. You need all the help you can get to get a good job. And much as vacuuming, but brushing and vacuuming furniture first gives you a far better job. And frankly, most furniture looks pretty darn good after good brushing and vacuuming. You can be challenged with your integrity because someone might say, wow, I never thought it would look that good. You have to tell them I haven't started yet. But hey, I can tell by your expression, you've seen that, Steve. A good brush.
I can't tell you how many times I would just dry vacuum and they'd come in, oh, it looks like new. And I'm going, I can quit now. It might help if I use a little moisture. But,
yeah. And frankly, the other thing, it protects your equipment. Getting animal hair in your extractor and filters is just a mess with it. Just all the animal hair you can get out, the better.
Have you, today, most people have pets. In fact, after this last year, I guess they were running out of, the shelters were running out of pets to adopt.
Exactly, yeah.
So everybody ran out. Now, we've always said, and I've always believed, that that's the best thing that can happen to a carpet cleaning company.
I believe it.
And talk a little bit about pets and upholstery.
First of all, reality is they're on the upholstery. I'm old enough to still remember dog houses outside. But the fact is, pets are on the furniture. They're part of the family. And the first thing I'll say is don't speak disrespectfully of that event or the customers I mean, most of us in the industry are pet owners themselves. That doesn't happen, but too many cleaners really put both feet in their mouth when they say anything negative about the pet owned furniture. So accept that the pet is going to be there. But what you have now is you have hair, you have their dander, you have their drool, and then of course you have urine and feces, and you have vomit. So disgusting as that may sound, that's all stuff you've got to deal with that they wouldn't allow the child to put on the furniture. So expect those contaminations, and you've got to have the skill to handle both the removal that, I mean, dog drool itself isn't necessarily easy to get out for 13 minutes. And urine, feces, and vomit take the spotting and stain removal skills. And then, of course, odor removal. So I don't think it's an option. You know, it used to be, we always talked about odor removal with carpet cleaning. But it's equally important with upholstery now. And it has its challenges, but it is a part of what you need to be prepared to do.
I agree. I think we've seen that. And I think, getting back to vacuuming, brushing and vacuuming, I think is more critical today than ever, especially microfibers and all these, pile fabrics.
One of the things that happens, especially here in the humid Northeast, but I know it's not like you're in the desert everywhere in your large state here. In the more humid months or times that you have higher humidity, the odor from animal hair and dander during the drying process can be really challenging to remove. And if you don't want to be doing that for free, get as much of the dander and hair out dry first. And that's on carpet. I love CRB units to get it out first. Furniture, we can't quite do that, but certainly vigorous brushing and vacuuming within safety to the fabric is critical to get that out of it. And it really will keep it from having that sour odor when you're done cleaning things.
Yeah.
Can you start to cover sort of what processes a beginner might use for upholstery cleaning? Sort of the basic, is it truck mount? You take your wand to it. What kind of equipment? I'm sure there's a range. How could you describe those basic techniques?
I'll say something that might be contrary to what some might expect, but I would tell you that the thing the last few years that I think has changed upholstery cleaning the most is the use of what we call encapsulation detergents that are used for carpet cleaning for furniture. The reason why is, while not all of them are, many of them are around neutral in their pH. They have fairly good oil cutting capabilities, and they're easier to remove from the fabric than shampoo. Now, the three of us grew up in the dry foam as an option era. We hot water extracted, and on the delicate things, especially with the decline of dry cleaning solvents, of using foam, on the older cotton fabrics or on the bleeders. But what I've been learning and doing a lot of work with is that a mist, then agitation with an orbital cleaning tool and a microfiber cotton cloth with one of these neutral and cap detergents is extremely safe and extremely effective. So I would tell you that you don't need a big, heavy orbital buffer because that thing would chase the cushions across the house. But one of the smaller handheld ones that you can get just at an AutoZone for $25, $30, it's small enough you can wrap a towel around it, hold it in your hand, and after you've applied the encapsulated product, and again, a neutral one. There are some alkaline ones, get one that's neutral. You can mist the fabric and go over with that, get really nice results. And unlike dry foam, the fabric tends to dry soft. Because that's what I didn't like about dry foam is you would hand towel it and dry vacuum it, but a lot of times it had a rough hand to it. And with an encap product used by its recommended dilution, it doesn't tend to leave that sticky feel if you do a good job with orbital buffing to extract the excess off. So that's one thing I would say, because that's an extremely safe method. It's a very low moisture method. It's very safe. And it's really changed the way I train. Now, the second thing is they're going to do hot water extraction, low moisture upholstery cleaning tools. Now, they're now decades old, but they were a big change in their industry. And, there's several brands available, but whether you call them low moisture tools or low wetting tools, they all work by using the vacuum of the cleaning head to redirect the water flow so that instead of the water penetrating through the fabric, the water goes over the fabric. So I describe that as being the difference between Niagara Falls going straight down or the river before it becomes the falls going across. So when you can clean with that river over the surface of the fabric, it's far safer than the waterfall penetrating through it. So one of these, low moisture upholstery cleaning tools attached to a portable or truck mount make a big difference. So orbital buffer, low moisture tool, and the right chemistry. And it's made upholstery cleaning so much safer than it used to be. We're being cautious, and this is for beginners, but I hate sounding like the old man that walked 20 miles to school uphill in the snow. But these guys don't know how hard it used to be and how great these tools really are for them compared to how it used to be done.
I can tell you not that long ago, working for ProChem before we were acquired, I was in love with the external jet ProChem upholstery tool.
Right.
And then I got my hands on a Sapphire Upholstery Pro,
Yeah,
the low moisture tool. And boy, I became a believer real quick.
I wondered how you used to handle that anvil in your hand, right?
Yeah.
A question came in.
At the time was the best thing we had.
Yeah.
On the temperature. So if you're using a low moisture tool, Barry is asking, is there a limit on what we should set the temperature of that water that's being injected in?
This is something else I think we've seen some healthy change in our industry. There was a day when it was boil it, hot as you can for everything you clean. I never thought that was wise then, but it certainly is. So I'll tell you the risks of high heat with upholstery. One is actually on synthetics. I'm sure you both have seen certain synthetic velvet or nap fabrics. If you hit them too hot, you can distort the fabric and you can't brush it out. Now that we've seen more with metal tools than in the plastic ones we use more today. But a hot metal cleaning tool, and I'm talking over 200 degrees on a truck mount, on a synthetic pile fabric, whether it's chenille or velvet, I've seen permanent damage from too much heat. So I hate general rules, but 180 degrees, unless I've got something I'm really confident I'm not going to damage, I don't like to have real boiling hot on furniture. This is another place I've not seen bleeding, but I've seen color loss. We don't have it so much with our low moisture tools today, but since some guys still use it, if you have a heat exchanger on a portable, all right, or you have a truck mount that either it's not functioning right or it's one of those ones designed where there's not a real good temperature control that keeps you from having a heat spike. And I'm not trying to get too technical, but you'll know there's equipment that just gets hotter and hotter and hotter. Then when you demand water, you're getting a burst of heat instead of a consistent heat. And whether it's a heat exchanger on a portable where it can kind of cook up in the heat exchanger while your tool's laying down, or in a truck mount, when you start to clean and then that super hot water that was starting to boil in the system comes out and hits the fabric, you can pull the color right out of the fabric. So in most cases today, most of the machines being made regulate the temperature pretty good, but not all of our equipment's always functioning right. And if you're not sure that you're not getting some heat spikes on your equipment, that you can't maintain it at a consistent temperature, be very careful with that. Because I've seen damage caused even on synthetics from overheating. On a natural fiber, if you get them too hot, the great thing about hot water is it penetrates better. The bad thing about hot water is it penetrates better, because on a thin, especially natural fiber fabric, that hot water wants to go right into the places you don't need it to be in the bath. So I like more lukewarm to 120, 150 degree temperatures on natural fibers because I don't want to get them that wet. and heat does wet fabrics.
So on an open jet tool, misting and vacuuming.
That's a great, which again, we used to all do. But yes, misting and vacuum, because when you hold the tool back and mist it, you have temperature loss before it hits the fabric.
Let's say, again, I'm a relatively new carpet cleaner, getting the carpets, cleaned all right. And I want to expand into upholstery cleaning. Do I just go get the equipment and then talk some customer into letting me hose down their sofa? How do you suggest somebody go about, is there something they should be doing prior to actually working for a paying customer?
Years ago, the way I taught myself and figured out techniques that I thought would work or wouldn't work, and I'm sure you two guys did this too, is when upholsterers reupholster furniture, they throw the cushions away. They don't reupholster the cushions, they reupholster the frame. I would get all the trash cushions I could find. And, if you don't mind doing a little roadside pickup or dumpster diving, just get stuff people have thrown away because it's already a hopeless case. You have zero risk and you can learn a lot of it. So I start with garbage if you can get a hold of that. Then if you have an understanding spouse, certainly clean your own furniture. And then move to understanding in-laws. But yeah, do not experiment on a paying customer. Look, if for no other reason this, nobody is really good at a job the first time. You're clumsy, you do things out of order, you skip steps, you correct yourself, you talk to yourself. These are not things you want to do in front of a stranger. Cleaning all the furniture you can for yourself and, Goodwill often would appreciate you cleaning their furniture, even if it doesn't look great when you're done, you're making it sanitary. So you certainly, it's a civic contribution to do something like that. But find stuff people have given up on and get some practice. It will give you great confidence because you're going to be cleaning things that probably a customer might never forgive you to clean. The stains, the soil, it's a great confidence builder to clean things somebody's given.
Jim, we had a question. When will you be coming out to the West Coast to teach one of your courses?
I have a tentative month, March 2022. I'll announce the date in our Clean Tip, which is our weekly newsletter, or it can be found at pembertons.com, which is my site, under the educational section. But for now, I'll just tell you it will be in Palm Desert, California, March 2022.
Great.
Jim, can you describe what type of money potential is out there for expanding into upholstery? I mean, and actually maybe even give a little bit, like what's the range that people can charge for upholstery cleaning? What kind of hourly revenue can you create?
I'm going to resist giving you a price range only because I live in Western Pennsylvania and you live in California. And what we can make a great profit on here would probably be a money loser there. But I will tell you that most cleaners undercharge for upholstery because they feel a pressure of what they see advertised. So I want to walk this back a little bit. To start with, most carpet cleaners, if they saw a price of $10 a room for carpet cleaning, they'd say, that's ridiculous. I've never cleaned for that. There has to be a trick. They wouldn't even consider that price. Would you agree?
Right.
Yes.
Well, they need to come up with an upholstery cleaning price that has no relationship to what they think is being advertised, but gives them the return per hour that they need, just like they need for carpet cleaning, tile and grout cleaning, duct cleaning, whatever they do. And leaving aside that we're never good enough when we start and it takes too long, you look at the time it takes to do it right and come up with a fair price, because despite what you think is price pressure, people are more worried about who cleans their furniture than they are who cleans their carpet. Carpet is part of the structure of the home or the rental property. They walk on it, they get their fees on it. They certainly want it clean, but in their mind, they think, I could have rented a machine. They don't look at upholstery that way. That furniture is going to move with them more. They bought that with a lot more care. The carpet may have come with the home. The furniture did. You have a right to get paid the same rate you make for everything else or better when you clean furniture. You need to find ways to be more efficient, and there's ways that you can do that. But the bottom line is, even good veteran cleaners, I think, grossly underprice their upholstery. If it's a microfiber fabric, can you charge $500 for it? No. You know, when you start to get around replacement costs for some of these things, that's not sensible. But when you look at what people pay for their furniture and what the value is for it, make sure you're getting that return. And if that means you're charging double what the next guy's charging, so what? Because and this applies to all cleaning, but especially upholstery. You look at the education you need. You look at the risk you take. You look at the special tools you have to purchase. And you ask yourself if the people who are cleaning at the cheap prices are making any of that type of investment themselves, and you know they're not. Doing all those things, you deserve to be rewarded for it. And if they don't want to pay for it, you really don't need that job. I know that's easy for me to say sitting back here. I'm not the one that has to balance the checkbook, all right? But there's no worse formula than going out for less than your worth, resenting it while you're doing the job, and leaving feeling defeated after you're done. What I've always said is, you find a price that no matter how hard you worked on it, when you leave the job, you're smiling. And that's what the price should be. If you're leaving it resenting the customer, resenting the job, you have undercharged. And that's a pattern that people sometimes repeat for years and decades. Don't do it.
If you're, again, new, can you make some like general, they're not statements, but like, is family room furniture generally safer to clean than, let's say, a formal living room? Is commercial upholstery, like an office building type thing, is that generally more durable and less risk than, maybe a high upscale home?
It can be. I know my father used to call synthetic furniture family room furniture. I like that term. So you can try to get a feel for it, but sometimes people make some really strange choices, Steve. You know, I've seen beach properties with silk furniture where people come out of the ocean and sit on a bathing suit and let the salt hit. So I'm careful with the generalization, but I can tell you, I can agree with you to the extent that that's a start, but not a replacement of your other inspection and smart testing. I have to say this on commercial. One embarrassing story, one terrible story. Embarrassing story, in my early days as a trainer, and I mean, I'll admit it, 1980, so I was a very young man, all right? I was doing an in-house training for a franchise, and they roll in one of the office chairs. And I said, hey, this will be great for hands-on. Lunch is pretty soon. We don't have to test this. In famous last words. As we vacuumed it and applied the preconditioner, I got the sulfur smell you get from wool. I was using a relatively neutral product. There was really no risk, but next thing you know, the guys are starting to go, what's that smell? And some of the smarter ones said, this is wool, isn't it? I didn't think there was wool office furniture. And thank goodness I wasn't using what some people use on office furniture, but it certainly was embarrassing to me to have said as a trainer, we don't need to test this and find that out. Caveat to that, commercial upholstery, you can ask them to find the information and they probably know what it's made of. You can probably get paperwork on it. I know that because of the second story. Fella up in Cleveland bled $16,000 worth of commercial furniture. Now that's 3 zeros after a comma after a 16. But it was a designer material. It was all wool. It was multicolored. And the new guy, they just figured he could use traffic lane cleaner as a free spray on commercial furniture. Now that's a unique circumstance. but it happened. So that's why when you have a commercial job, the greatest test in the world is to say, okay, before we do this, we'd like to have the specifications on your furnishing. They don't think you're wrong to ask the question. That's a completely normal thing to ask, just like in commercial carpet or flooring or anything else. You can ask for maintenance records, any information that they have, because it could have to do with care or warranty, and they often have it. This place had all the information because they sure produced it after the guy ruined it. That's how I found out what it was made from. The company was called Maharam. I had all the contact information. Everything was there. It was color fast to neutral detergents, but it wasn't color fast to 12.
Do you have a graceful way for a cleaner to bow out of cleaning a particular piece of upholstery? So let's say they go and say, well, can you clean, let's say, oh, I feel comfortable cleaning the recliner in the family room. That looks like it's 100%, and I'm going to test it prior to cleaning. But they bring out something that goes, that doesn't look good. And I'm curious about this. I go, have you found a graceful way to turn down cleaning something other than saying, I don't know what I'm doing?
It's pretty close to that, because one of the most disarming things in the world is honesty and humility. We have too little of both. And I think that someone can comfortably say, I'm trained and experienced in cleaning carpets, maybe floors. I've had a lot of experience working with this kind of fabric. This is a beautiful item, Mrs. Jones. I'm not sure where you got it. This appears to have a very high value. And frankly, I'm not qualified to do it. I'd like to find someone for you that I know and trust, that I know could do it for you if you'd allow me to look them up for you. Very few people would object to somebody being that honest with them. And I think they would appreciate that kind of honesty.
Just if I can kind of add to that, one time when I was new to cleaning upholstery, there was some living room. It was a cotton velvet, and I'd never cleaned them before. I'd heard all sorts of horror stories about it. And so I knew I wanted to turn that down, but I also had, as you had talked about before, a mentor. So I said, I would like to bring in somebody that has some more experience. And so I hired him. I asked him, what would he charge? This is what then I passed on to the customer. And I was there to help him clean it. So that made a learning experience from it.
That is great. And I'm sure he was kind enough to do that, because obviously he wasn't going to get that job again, because he was keeping the customer relationship. Yeah, great idea. Another good reason to find a mentor close to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Jim, in your courses, and I hope I don't get cut off here, my internet connection is terrible tonight, but in your courses, you bring out many pieces of material to go through and talk about problem fabrics, as well as tips and tricks for each different fabric you bring out. So it's really, I'm just kind of pushing people to maybe take your course or take an in-person course so that you can get your hands on these materials so you have a deeper understanding of it.
Well, thank you for that. What I've done over the years is just collected crime scenes. Anybody that ruined something, they said the biggest favor you could do the rest of the industry is send me a piece of it.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of things that went wrong.
Of course, you didn't do it, but
I've done my share.
yeah.
I always tell students, and I'm happy to say this, there's unlikely that there is a thing they can do wrong in cleaning that I have not done. And that's often how I've learned.
Yeah.
Have you ever taken the time with these pieces that you have collected from dumpster diving and that sort of thing? And have you ever taken them, at home or on your own and tried to cause damage?
Yes, several times. I have pieces I've done that with, where I have a whole base of a jacquard weave from a claim that didn't damage because it was the base, the platform. And I put magic marker stripes and tried different cleaning agents to see what was safest, worse, and labeled the back. And yes, I use that as a part of my training. Different pH ranges, different solvent characteristics, just different moisture levels, just to do that side by side on the same fabric.
And then I found that the more you get educated, first of all, the more confidence you have, because to me, before I started taking all of the IICRC classes and that sort of thing, I was always in fear. I was in over my head. And the more classes I took, and I didn't take just one, I took multiple classes, but more I understood the chemistry, there was far less doubt going into the situations because I knew why I was doing what I was doing and I knew the limitations. So taking those classes, if you want to get serious about it and you want to have peace, like what you're doing, continuing to get education and experiment is a worthwhile investment of time and money.
Yeah, the cost of the classes is not near the cost of a claim, but even worse than that. Actually, I don't come across or see near as many claims as I did years ago. Furniture cleaning is safer today. I know that may not be what you expected me to say, but it's not as bad as it used to be because of the chemistry and the tools and the training available. What's worse, though, is the poor results where cleaners are working hard for too long and not getting paid enough, and the people aren't happy. So one of the things that I stress today is different than, say, how I taught 30, 40 years ago, is not so much, here's all the horrible things that can happen and how to stay out of trouble, although I do cover that. But here's how to get things clean, better, quicker, your customer to be happier, so that you have consistently good results. Because I think that if you're not making any money all year on upholstery cleaning, it probably costs you more than one claim. Or if you have a number of unhappy customers that paid you, but they don't give you a good review or they don't call you back, you can't even measure how much that costs you. So
Oh, we just lost him.
Oh, the gods of technology are against us tonight.
Sunspots. I was going to mention, there's nothing like a good hands-on class, but a shameless plug, at legendbrandscleaning.com, if you go to resources on that site, there is a link to videos. There he is.
So I was in the middle of a rant. But I hope the point came through that it's worse to get bad results and have unhappy customers than it is to have a claim. A claim is one cost that you measure, you do and you get behind you. But the cost of bad results, unhappy customers, or unprofitability is immeasurable, and that way more dangerous. So I was tagging to what you were saying, Steve, is you need to be confident and feel that same good feeling you get when you're cleaning a carpet. When you're just seeing that nice result as you push the cleaning wand and that night and day difference. Cleaners like to feel like you're doing something good while you go. Furniture cleaning should make you feel that way or you're doing something.
Well, Tim was talking while you were offline for a minute there about, the sources that Legend Brand has that for education that you can go check out. One of the other things that's wonderful about CFI and a member benefit is all of these webinars are recorded. So you can go back and, listen to them and go through it again a second, a third time and highlight certain areas. Oh, I got to get this down a little bit more. And there are questions that people asked about, complicated fabrics, and we just ran out of time to get there. But I look forward, Jim, to having you come back at a future date that we can go into those very complicated fabrics and how we, with expertise and knowledge, can go and conquer some of those ones that other people rightly should be walking away from. And so I really look back to continuing this conversation.
I would say about half the meetings I've been on have had these kind of challenges. So it's sorry that this one has to.
So Jim, we're at that time, but we could go on for another few hours. We do appreciate your time and your knowledge And I know I've gotten a lot out of it. And again, this is a subject that if you're going to be in the carpet cleaning business, you really need to expand into upholstery, because people don't want to hire just a carpet cleaner. They want a carpet cleaner, and while he's there to, or they're there to do the upholstery cleaning as well.